When I refused to let my husband's sister borrow my car, she spread a lie that I had hit her child. Furious, my husband snapped, "Just apologize to keep the peace." Instead, I called someone. The next morning, she opened her door and nearly fainted when she saw who was standing there. I'm 41, living in Charlotte, North Carolina. Married to my husband Mark for going on 9 years. No kids, just me and him. We both work full-time and for the most part, things are okay. But the one constant problem in our marriage? His sister, Becca. Becca is the kind of person who thinks everyone owes her something. She's always asking for favors, and she never gives anything back. She borrows stuff and either breaks it or loses it, and somehow it's never her fault. She doesn't say thank you. She doesn't apologize. She just keeps taking. This all started because she wanted to borrow my car. It was a Thursday afternoon. I was at work when I got a text from Becca. "Hey. Can I borrow your car this weekend? Mine's in the shop, and the kids are driving me crazy." I told them we'd go to Carowinds. I didn't even hesitate. I said no. I need my car. I use it to get to work. I use it to run errands. And frankly, I don't trust Becca behind the wheel of anything I own. The last time I lent her something, it was my lawnmower, and she returned it with a cracked blade and no explanation. Plus, I know how she treats her own stuff. She's constantly in and out of repair shops because she drives like the road belongs to her. So I texted back, "Sorry, can't. I need it for work and can't risk it." She replied, "Ugh, okay. Worth a shot," with a laughing emoji. That was it. Or so I thought. Sunday night, I came home from the grocery store. The second I walked through the door, my phone started going off. Text after text. Missed calls. Voicemails. All from people I knew. Friends. Neighbors. Even a couple of people I barely talked to. "Hey, is everything okay with Becca's kid? Did something happen in your driveway? I can't believe she's being so calm about it." I'm standing in my kitchen, staring at my phone, trying to figure out what the hell everyone is talking about. I hadn't seen Becca or her kid in days. Finally, I called her. She picked up right away, sounding completely casual, like we were old friends just chatting. I asked her flat out, "Why is everyone asking if something happened with your kid? Did you tell people I hit him?" And she goes, "Oh, yeah, well, kinda. But it's not a big deal." I didn't want to make a whole thing of it. I was silent for a second because I honestly thought I must have misheard her. "You said what?" She laughed. Laughed. And then said, "Relax. I just mentioned you kinda bumped him with your car the other day. He's fine. Just a little bruise." I wasn't going to say anything, but people asked why he wasn't feeling good today. Let me repeat, I had not seen this child in over a week. I hadn't even left my house the same time as her family in days. But there she was, telling people I'd hit her kid with my car. I told her she needed to clear that up immediately. She just kept brushing me off. "It's not that serious. Don't make it a whole thing." I hung up and told my husband what was going on. Mark was sitting on the couch, halfway watching a football game and halfway scrolling on his phone. I explained everything. I showed him the texts. I told him exactly what Becca said. He looked at me, shrugged, and said, "Just apologize. You know how she is. Let's just keep the peace." I stared at him for a good 30 seconds, waiting for him to realize how insane he sounded. Apologize? For something I didn't do? For an accident that never happened? For a lie she made up and told half the neighborhood? Absolutely not, I said. "Babe, come on," he said. "It's Becca. She's not gonna change. Just say sorry and let her have this one. Let her have this one." That's when I knew I needed to handle this myself. Because if I left it alone, Becca would do what she always does, keep lying, keep stirring up drama, and keep getting away with it. So I made a call. I have a friend named Jenna who works for Child Protective Services. We've been friends since high school, and I trust her more than just about anyone. I didn't call her as a friend, though. I called her as someone who deals with real cases of child abuse and neglect every single day. I asked her a very simple question: if someone is telling people their kid was hit by a car but never reported it, and the kid isn't being checked out, is that something CPS looks into? She didn't even hesitate. Yes. Absolutely. Who's the kid? I told her everything. The fake story. The texts. The fact that I hadn't even been near them. The way Becca was using this lie to make me look like some careless driver who hurt her kid and didn't even apologize. Jenna said, "Okay. I'm opening a welfare check first thing in the morning." That's when I knew things were about to get real. At 9 a.m. on the dot, Becca got a visit. She wasn't expecting it. She thought this was just another little story she could tell to get some sympathy and maybe make me look bad in the process. But CPS doesn't mess around. They showed up at her door with a police officer. They asked to see her son. They asked her to explain the accident she told people about. They took notes. They took photos. They checked her house. They asked why she hadn't taken him to the hospital if he was hurt. They asked why she hadn't filed a report. They asked why no one else had witnessed anything. And Becca? Becca completely fell apart. A neighbor who lives across the street told me the whole scene. Said Becca answered the door in her robe, hair a mess, cup of coffee in hand, looking like she'd just rolled out of bed. 20 minutes later, she was red-faced, stammering, and couldn't get her story straight. And the best part? Her kid was completely fine. Not a mark on him. No bruise. No scratch. Nothing. The officer took her statement. CPS documented everything. And Becca got hit with a citation for making a false report. But that wasn't even the most satisfying part. Because once people in the neighborhood found out CPS had been called to check on Becca's kid, the stories started pouring out. Turns out, this wasn't the first lie Becca had told. Not even close. By noon that same day, my phone started lighting up again. But this time? The messages were different. Why are the police at Becca's house? I just saw CPS there. Is everything okay? Did something happen with her kid for real? It didn't take long before the whole block knew what went down. You don't get a welfare check from CPS with a police escort without people noticing. Charlotte might be a big city, but neighborhoods? Neighborhoods are small. People talk. And Becca's story started cracking. Because now, people who heard her version of events, the one where I clipped her son with my car and then coldly drove off without checking on him, were realizing none of it added up. One neighbor, Greg, who lived 2 doors down, texted me this, "Funny how she said you hit him Friday, but we saw you leave before noon and you weren't back until after dark." Exactly. Because I was at work. Like I always am on Fridays. But here's where things took a turn I didn't see coming. Turns out, Becca's lie about me wasn't some random one-off. No. This woman had been building a little web of stories for months. Maybe years. And people were finally starting to connect the dots. One neighbor, Diane, came straight to my door. She didn't even knock, just stood there waiting for me to answer. "I don't know if you know this," she said, "but last month Becca told me you were stealing packages off porches." I blinked at her. "Excuse me?" "Yeah," Diane said. "She told me to keep an eye out because you'd been having money trouble and were taking deliveries." I stood there, stunned. I hadn't heard a word of that before. Then another text came in. From a different neighbor, Katie. "Did Becca ever tell you that you poisoned her cat?" Because she told me that too. At this point, I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. This woman had been smearing me up and down the street for who knows how long, and I'd been totally unaware. I thought she was just mildly annoying. But no. Becca was on a whole campaign. And apparently, she wasn't as subtle as she thought. What made this even worse was Mark. After the CPS visit, he was quiet. Almost too quiet. He didn't say anything for hours, just sat in the living room on his phone, scrolling and scrolling. Finally, I asked him, "So? Still think I should apologize?" He didn't even look up. Just said, "I didn't think she'd take it this far." That's when I realized something important. Mark knew Becca was like this. He'd just been hoping if we ignored it, she'd get bored and move on. But she didn't. She kept pushing, testing, seeing how much she could get away with. And Mark had been letting her. That night, I found him texting her. I couldn't see the whole conversation, but I caught enough over his shoulder to realize he was telling her to just clear things up and stop making stuff worse. I couldn't believe it. I asked him flat out, "Why are you protecting her?" And all he said was, "She's my sister." That's when I decided I wasn't finished yet. Here's the part that no one saw coming. The next day, I got a call from Jenna. "You're not going to believe this," she said. Apparently, during the CPS visit, Becca had made some offhand comment about how the bruise isn't even that bad anymore, even though her kid didn't have a single mark on him. And CPS? They don't play with that. So they pulled school records. Medical records. Just to double-check. And guess what they found? There had been 3 other times in the past year when Becca had taken her kid to urgent care for accidental injuries. All small stuff. A sprained wrist. A cut on his forehead. A bruise on his ribs. And every single time, the story was shaky. One of the reports even mentioned the nurse felt concerned about how vague Becca was being. Which meant Becca wasn't just lying about me. She might have been making up stuff about her own kid. Or worse. I didn't even know what to do with that information. Jenna told me CPS was opening a deeper investigation, and it wasn't just about some fake driveway incident anymore. Now they were digging into Becca herself. And the thing is? Becca had no idea I knew. She was still posting on Facebook like nothing happened, dropping passive-aggressive comments about fake friends and jealous people trying to ruin her life. Meanwhile, I was just sitting back, letting the professionals handle it. But the neighborhood wasn't staying quiet. That week, 3 different neighbors came forward with their own stories about Becca. Greg said she accused his wife of scratching her car. Katie said Becca told her someone had been sneaking into her backyard and she thought it was me. Diane said Becca tried to borrow her car once too, and when she said no, Becca stopped talking to her for months. It was like everyone had just been waiting for someone to say out loud what we were all thinking: Becca is a problem. And now that CPS was involved, and now that the cops had been at her door, no one was afraid to speak up anymore. I heard through the grapevine that Becca was shocked people weren't taking her side. She thought everyone would rally around her, but instead, people started pulling away. They stopped inviting her places. They stopped answering her calls. They stopped believing her stories. And Mark? He started getting quiet whenever I brought her up. Like he knew the truth but didn't want to admit it out loud. But the thing is, I wasn't finished. Not yet. I had an idea. Something bigger. Something that would make sure Becca couldn't just crawl out of this and start all over again somewhere else. Because I found out something about her lease agreement and her landlord. And once I put 2 and 2 together, I realized I had the perfect next step. But I'll save that part for later. Want me to keep going? So at this point, Becca was on thin ice. The CPS visit rattled her. Word had spread through the neighborhood. People were backing off. She wasn't getting invited to the usual backyard cookouts or the group chats about block parties anymore. But Becca? She's not the type to just take the L and move on. No. Instead, she doubled down. 3 days after the CPS visit, I woke up to another wave of texts, this time from Mark's family. His mom. His aunt. Even his cousin from Asheville who I barely know. All of them blowing up my phone, asking the same thing. What's going on with Becca? Why did you call CPS on her? She said you're trying to get her kid taken away. And just like that, Becca had changed the narrative. Now she was telling family that I had called CPS out of spite. That I was jealous of her being a mom. That I was trying to ruin her life because I don't have kids of my own. I was speechless. This woman went from lying about me hitting her kid to telling the entire family that I was out here running some kind of personal vendetta to have her child removed from her home. And Mark? Once again, useless. I mean, I get why she'd be upset, he said. I swear I thought I was being punked. You get why she'd be upset. She's dragging my name through the dirt with your entire family. She's lying again. Are you seriously defending her? He didn't answer. At that moment, I realized my husband might love me, but when it came to Becca, he was spineless. The next twist hit me like a brick. That Friday, I came home from work to find a note taped to our front door. It was folded over, and all it said on the outside was, "Thought you should know." Inside was a printout. Not handwritten. A full printout of a long, nasty Facebook post from a private neighborhood group I wasn't even part of. Guess who wrote it? Becca. She had posted this long rant accusing me of harassment. She said I had been spying on her family, calling authorities with false reports, and turning the neighborhood against her out of bitterness. She even claimed I'd been stalking her son. I felt sick. I read the whole thing 3 times to make sure I wasn't imagining it. She named me directly. Tagged me. Told everyone she was seeking legal advice and considering a restraining order. It was beyond anything I thought she was capable of. But here's the thing, Becca thought she was clever. She thought posting that in a private group would protect her. Like the rest of the neighborhood wouldn't tell me. Like people were still on her side. But she was wrong. The note? Someone from that group printed it out and left it on my door anonymously. No name, no return address. Just that simple message, thought you should know. And once I had that evidence, my next step became crystal clear. Now, here's where things really get interesting. Remember how I mentioned her landlord? Well, after all this, I finally decided to dig into her living situation. Becca rents. She's been in the same house for about 2 years. Always bragging about her sweet deal and how she's got a cool landlord who doesn't bother her. But what she never mentioned. Turns out, the owner of her house is a guy named Mr. Patterson. Retired, quiet, and lives about 5 blocks away. I only knew about him because we'd met once at a yard sale. So I reached out. Very casually. Just to ask if he was aware of everything going on at his property. Turns out, he was not. When I told him CPS had been called to the home, and that there had been police involvement, he got real quiet. Then he thanked me and hung up. 2 hours later, Diane texted me. Landlord's at Becca's. He looks pissed. Apparently, he showed up unannounced. Knocked on the door and demanded to inspect the place. Becca wasn't happy, but legally, she couldn't refuse. According to Diane, it turned into a whole scene with shouting, slamming doors, and Becca crying on the porch. But wait. There's more. The following day, I get another text from Diane. Check the county records. I didn't know what she meant at first, but then she sent me the link. Guess who hadn't been paying rent? For 3 months. Becca had been telling people her car was in the shop, and that's why she couldn't get around. Telling people she was tight on cash because of repairs. But in reality? She wasn't paying rent. Just living there, hoping the landlord wouldn't notice. And now? He definitely noticed. Word was spreading fast. The same neighbors Becca had been lying to were now whispering about eviction. About CPS. About the police at her house. Suddenly, Becca wasn't the victim anymore. She was the problem. And honestly? I hadn't even touched my real plan yet. Because if she thought CPS and the landlord showing up were bad, I had one more card to play. But I'll save that part for later if you want me to keep going. Want me to continue? At this point, Becca had burned every bridge in the neighborhood. People stopped replying to her texts. She wasn't getting invited anywhere. Even the friendlier neighbors were keeping their distance. Mark was barely talking. CPS was still investigating her, and her landlord was circling like a shark. And then, the final straw. A week after her public Facebook smear campaign against me, the HOA announced a monthly neighborhood meeting. Normally, 5 people show up to those. This time? The room was packed. And Becca was there. She came in late, wearing sunglasses indoors like she was hiding from paparazzi, dragging her kid along like a prop. Sat in the back corner, arms crossed, glaring daggers straight through me. I didn't go there planning to say anything. I really didn't. But the second the meeting opened up for community concerns, Diane, bless her heart, raised her hand. Yeah. Actually, I think we need to address the false rumors being spread about neighbors. Because it's gotten out of hand. You could feel the air leave the room. All eyes went to me. Then to Becca. I wasn't going to speak up. I swear I wasn't. But then Becca laughed. Laughed. Loud enough for the whole room to hear. That was it. I stood up. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just laid it out. I just want to clear the record, I said. I never hit anyone with my car. I never poisoned anyone's cat. I never stole a single thing off anyone's porch. And I've had enough of the lies. The room was dead silent. I looked straight at Becca. If you want to accuse me of something, Becca, do it to my face. Right now. In front of everyone. Becca smirked. Maybe I would if it wasn't true. I nodded. All right. So then explain to everyone why CPS found nothing. Explain why your kid didn't have a scratch on him. Explain why you told half the block I'm a thief, but no one ever saw me take anything. Explain why your landlord is at your house every other day now. That wiped the smile off her face. But it wasn't me who finished her off. Nope. That honor went to Greg. From his seat near the front, Greg piped up loud and clear, "Hey, Becca? Didn't you say we dented your car last month? But we were out of town that whole week." Then Diane. "And didn't you say Katie was sneaking in your yard?" "Katie, she told me you poisoned her cat." It was like popcorn going off. One by one, people started sharing the lies Becca had told them. All different. All pointing fingers at different people. All ridiculous. Becca's face went pale. Then red. Then pale again. She stood up. Grabbed her kid by the arm. "You're all just jealous," she snapped. "Pathetic." And she stormed out. Right there. In front of everyone. Slammed the door so hard the windows rattled. Nobody spoke for a few seconds after the door slammed. Then Diane said, "Well, I guess that's that." And just like that, the tension broke. People were shaking their heads, whispering, looking around like we'd all just witnessed the end of some bad movie. Mark didn't say a word the whole meeting. But in the car on the way home, he finally spoke. And what did he say? "Maybe we should check on her. She's probably embarrassed." I almost laughed. After all of that, his first thought was still about protecting her feelings. I didn't even answer him. Just stared out the window the rest of the ride. When we got home, he went straight to the bedroom. I heard him shut the door. I stayed in the kitchen, replaying everything in my head. Here's the thing no one tells you about standing up for yourself against someone like Becca: you think it's going to feel good. And yeah, part of it does. Finally getting the truth out there. Watching her face when her web of lies unraveled in public. Having the whole neighborhood see her for what she really is. But there's another part that doesn't feel good at all. The part where you realize someone in your own family was willing to destroy your name over nothing. Just because you wouldn't give them what they wanted. Just because you said no. The part where you realize your husband, the person who's supposed to have your back, never really stood up for you. Not once. Even as his sister dragged me through the mud, he just kept sitting there, telling me to keep the peace. And the worst part? I don't even think Becca thinks she did anything wrong. I think, in her mind, she's the victim of this whole thing. Like we all ganged up on her for no reason. Over the next few days, neighbors kept stopping me on the street. "Glad you spoke up. Sorry we didn't say anything sooner. We've all been dealing with her." And you know what? That part felt good. It felt like I wasn't crazy anymore. Like I wasn't fighting this alone. But things with Mark? Different story. He's been quieter. Distant. I think maybe it finally hit him that Becca's behavior is more than just how she is. And me? I'm thinking real hard about what it means to stay married to someone who watched me get dragged through hell and didn't lift a finger. A week after the meeting, Becca's landlord posted an eviction notice on her door. CPS wrapped up their case and closed it with no action, but the file's still open for monitoring, just in case. Becca moved in with Mark's mom, about 2 towns over. I haven't heard from her since. Mark and I are figuring things out. And me? I drive past her old house every morning on my way to work. The place looks quiet now. Sometimes I wonder if she ever really thought it would work, if she thought she could lie her way through life forever. But the thing about liars? They always get caught. Sooner or later. And when they do, all you have to do is stand up and tell the truth. The rest takes care of itself.